Okay, so what we did was a wireless chat system using an Xbee chip. It's gonna basically send data to another Nexus board and just chat amongst the Nexus board. And I'm Khanh. This is Brian, Spence, Steve, and Eric.
So the requirements of this, we just, to type we use a keyboard. So we interface the keyboard via the PS2 port on the Nexus board and the UART, which is a universal asynchronous receive transmit. And it's just a different kind of like serial it's kind of like an SPI, but it's just asynchronous. And we interface the Xbee wireless chip to the JD1, which is just the last one, the little black thing that the LCD is plugged into. And you just chat between those based on those elements of the design. And then the hardware, pretty much as you see, just two UARTs. You use the UART for the Xbee chip and the keyboard, and then everything else is pretty much the same as the basics, the LCD, the 2 GPIOs for the data control, and then the basic microblaze structure.
For software, it's a little more complicated. In order to keep track of what was happening, we needed to have two loops reading the registers. Actually, one's checking the keyboard input and one's checking the Xbee input. And so what would happen is if we had input from the keyboard, we'd process that character and it'd go through a whole conversion code, because the keyboard actually sends not ASCII, so you have to transfer that to ASCII. And then we have actually a check that says it looks for an enter, and on an enter press, it sends the message. And so the entire string that it has saved, it actually exports that through the UART to the transfer FIFO of the Xbee. But if it's not an enter, it checks for an arrow key, and what an arrow key would do is up and down would shift between the message that you were most recently sent and the last 5 messages, but that number could be changing anything. So up and down we can shift through the last messages that you sent, and then left and right you can scroll through messages that are longer than 16 characters that would only fit on one line of the LCD. And so we have it set up that the top line does the message that you're typing, and the bottom line does the message that you're receiving. So you can type and receive at the same time. Even if you're in the middle of typing a message and you receive one, your message isn't deleted, so it's exactly what you'd expect, and it works seamlessly between 2 Nexus ports. And so after we're done processing the message, if it's a normal character, we just add it to the string that we're saving in the output. And then we go back through and check if the register, or the receive register of the Xbee has data. And if it does, then we read that entire string, because we send entire strings at a time, and we save that into our saved messages, and then go back through the entire loop.
Alright, so the basic overview of our design is you have 2 Nexus boards. Each Nexus board has a keyboard hooked up to the PS2 communicating via UART, and then each Nexus board also has an LCD discrete and the Xbee wireless chip. The Xbee chip we offer to SparkFun is a 1 milliwatt chip. Has a range about 300 feet outdoors and around 30 feet indoors. Alright, so basically it's a normal chat system. You type the message using the keyboard. All of the keys work, shifting works, and all the special characters work. 1 or ampersand. And then you hit enter to send the message, right? Basically, I already covered all that. And so testing the board, we used the LEDs when we first started out to test. So we would display like the scan codes from the keyboard or the character that we're trying to send to make sure that it's working. And once we had it working pretty well, we could test it by sending messages and seeing if they got the message, working everything like that. Once it was working perfectly, we took it outside and we found out about the maximum range outside, and then we were playing indoors to find out the range. So that's how we did it.
Yeah, it was pretty handy. The Xbee setup works just plugging it in. It works as a UART, just as you'd expect. So yeah. And as long as the only thing that we ran into with testing was that sending messages, if you sent them too fast, the UART couldn't keep up with sending all your messages on top of each other, or it wouldn't receive them on the other side. For some reason, one of the buffers was full and not waiting for data.
But that was only when you could test it with one board by taking UART out and wiring it to the UART in, so you can send a message and then you receive it. But the problem was you can't send and receive at the same time with the UART. So if you sent too long of a message, you couldn't receive part of it with one board, but with two, it's not a problem. Okay, so our demo's over there in the corner.
So, go ahead. Okay, I'll go ahead. So, basically, on the top line here is the input. Yeah, so go ahead and type a message. You can see it'll show up on the top here. And as soon as you press enter, the message disappears and it shows up on his board.
Down here at the bottom is the message that he sent, and then I could reply back, and it will appear wirelessly through the Xbee over on his board. Then he can scroll through the messages that he's received.
You have to send me another one. Send me a longer message too, so we can do messages longer than 16 bytes. It keeps track of up to 100, which I mean is just kind of an arbitrary limit, but 100 seemed long enough. So with a really long message, I can use the arrow keys left and right to scroll through. And so he says a really long message that goes on forever. And then I can go back and forth, and I can go up and down to scroll through my last message, and it goes up to the last 5. So he sent me 5 messages. Then I can go, this is the last message, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. And then, so in the mid, if you're typing a message, so start typing, like, just put in some characters.
Also, like, shift works, so that's a capital H, and then capital W, and all of these work. All these special characters up here as well. And we also implemented backspace, so you can, delete if you make a mistake, or,
yeah, and he can still send me a message, so send me a message right now, and it won't delete
it
what's
just
happening.
appears on the bottom.
So you can continue typing
and then
normally.
I can send what I had, and it'll show up on his.
That's it.
Yep, pretty cool.
Cool.
Great.